And so for us, it really isn't about a fitness experience. It's about a health and human performance experience, but it's also about engineering that for the individual, right? And so an analogy could be this. Let's say you and I are kind of, we're high impact people, let's say. We're living our lives and trying to achieve as best we can and really striving hard. And what takes a backseat perhaps is the exposure to exercise. Our lifestyle habits maybe not are the best. And so we have this, and then we've experienced this for some degree of years. And then what we want to do is we want to get back to a healthy position. We want to get back to a healthy goal. And so we may lean into an exercise engagement, but we may not know necessarily where to start. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that instead of starting with exercise, we might actually start with recovery. And so that doesn't sound quite like the fitness experience yet, does it? Because no, I want to start exercising so I get somewhere. So the analogy I might use is, imagine if we're filling our 4-liter bucket with 5 liters of fluid that is life, right? So it's just, work commitments, life commitments, financial commitments, relationship and family commitments. And that 5 liters of liquid is just overflowing. So what the individual tends to do now is to say, I feel like I can't keep up. I feel like I'm underwater. I feel like this is too much. And the idea of that individual is, well, let's go and exercise now, because now we're stressing out a stressed out system. So now we're putting 5.5 liters of fluid in a 4-liter container. So it continues to overflow. And the analogy there is that instead of necessarily adding stress to a stressed out system, what we may do is to say, all right, for Michol and Matt, what we're going to do is we're going to start off by recovering. So we're going through a recovery process, and that could be hot, cold, that could be light, that could be compression, that can be sleep strategies or napping strategies. That could be all of these things to index higher levels. It could be breathing techniques, all these levels to increase recovery. In this analogy, you're not changing the fluid that's going in. It could be 5 or 5.5 liters. But what are we doing? We're building now not a 4-liter tank. We're building a 6 or 7-liter tank. And now we're saying, hey, Matt, now we've just built you, or Michol, we've built you a capacity that is increased. Right. Now keep living your life. Because now that 5.5 liters doesn't seem overwhelming anymore. It's like, don't worry about it. Just keep living your life. We've given you a bigger tank. Right? And that is part of the fitness or high performance experience. It's not just about stressing an individual out. It's about how do you engineer stress and recovery. And a lot of times what we might do is start off with the recovery. So, for an individual, they might come in and say, well, what's your fitness experience like? Well, I've been going to see my individual and they've got me to recover. Well, that doesn't sound quite right. Why you're not exercising? No, we're recovering. Well, why? And in this case, we are trying to index recovery or trying to introduce recovery so that we can actually build capacity within our physiology or biology.
So if say, for example, you're a high-end athlete, would that, do those same processes, so they're a high-end athlete, maybe they've had some injuries or whatever, would that, are you using those same principles for someone on that level as well then? Look,
what does Tom Brady, LeBron James, Serena Williams, and Roger Federer all have in common? They all should be retired, right? Because they're in the twilight of their career. And they all spend either a lot of money or a lot of time recovering. All of them, right? So the soundbite on Roger Federer is he sleeps 10 hours a night and has a 2-hour nap every day, right? That's recovery, right? Tom Brady, 13 people to handle his recovery. LeBron James spends, I don't know what the number was, but a high figure on recovery. So what they're trying to do is build capacity. And that to us is a pivot in the fitness industry, it's a pivot. If you study health and human performance physiologically, it's not. Because what you're trying to do is balance out the systems of the body, if you call it sympathetic or parasympathetic, right? And you're trying to balance those out so that you build capacity. And what's interesting about even just general stress is the natural response of the body to stress, any type of stress, is movement and community, right? So if you're under stress, you're going to fight or flee, and you're going to get around other people, right? If there's a bear chasing you, you're going to look for another human being to get closer to. What's interesting now is we do the opposite, right? You're stressed at work, I'm stressed at work, we're sitting at a table. And we isolate, particularly now with pandemic, we isolate ourselves and we don't move because we're trying to figure out if it's work-related stress, we're working late, we're sitting. Yeah. We're doing the exact opposite of the natural response to stress, which is to move and to seek a communal situation for protection. Yeah. Right? The strength of others, if you will. Yeah. And we're doing the opposite. And that's not human.
Not resting as well. I guess that's a side effect of, when you are stressed, you're not sleeping and not getting your recovery. And
that's the cascade, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. And then you try harder, right? And sleep is something that you can't try harder to do. No. Right? You can't will yourself to sleep. But try tonight, all the viewers, right? Yeah. It's not going to work, right? So you have to let chemistry just simply take over, but chemistry has to undulate relative to a circadian rhythm. Mm. And so that's the idea of health and human performance. You undulate and you engineer these types of things.